Okay, so welcome everyone to our session on Bhagavat Sankhya, and let me, where is my PPT? Okay, and okay, so all right, so this is share. And so thank you for joining me. I just want to make little clarification, because studying Bhagavat Sankhya and studying modern science are two different aspects. How they are different? They are different because, you see, all description, scientific description within Veda is meant to understand ourselves, to know ourselves, to know the absolute truth. Whereas the scientific subject that are taught in our science is to earn money, is to make a career. So we need to understand this very, very clearly. Why I'm saying, because if our attitude and our consciousness is not right, we will not get anything from Bhagavat Sankhya. Let me explain to you. You see, we talked about the composition of this world in terms of Pancha Mahabhuta, Tanmatras, and then mind, intelligence, and false ego. This cannot be understood using the kind of training that we have within modern science. We have to recognize this, and the first very significant point in understanding Bhagavat Sankhya is our attitude to become free from ignorance. In scientific parlance, ignorance and sin are both same, right? All of you understand what is sin, right? S-I-N, sin, papa. So papa or ignorance, what are they? That which covers us, that which does not reveal us, or I can say also sin is that by which I'm covered, or I'm away from myself, right? So when something keeps you away from yourself, that means when knowingly you want to keep the truth in hiding, then in a so-called attempt of understanding Bhagavat Sankhya will not be fruitful. So obviously, anybody who studies Bhagavat Sankhya, it will have different parameters to study, and these parameters we don't check in our universities when we study science. So I want to let you know this, because Bhagavat Sankhya is not something that I will learn it, I will understand it, and I will publish some papers, and I'll get a Nobel Prize. If that idea you want to study Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavat Sankhya, you will get nothing. Bhagavat Sankhya is a scientific approach to understand thyself or uncover the truth. And as I told you, truth and ignorance, they are antithesis to each other. Sin is a form of ignorance. So we must remain, or we must commit ourselves to a sinless life before we can ever catch the pulse of Bhagavat Sankhya. There are many people, they come and they talk about Bhagavat Sankhya, and without the spirit behind the Sankhya. Bhagavat Sankhya is meant to establish a relationship with the Absolute Truth. How can I establish a relationship with the Absolute Truth? Let me give you a little example. You say that this body, the physical body that I have, or universal body, right? In this physical body, you know, the great actor, the great actor is the mind. And where is this mind? You don't see, I don't see. But if you go deep within yourself, you can at least reach the level of thought. Maybe I should give a lecture on language of thought. This has nothing to do with as far as the Bhagavat Sankhya is concerned, but that's very important, the language of thought. So thought or thinking is the language of mind. You know, you can't figure out where is the mind, but you can figure out your thought. And that very thought, which is invisible, gets connected to your physical body through brain. And suddenly you see brain in action. As soon as brain is in action, the body is in action. The body is in action means brain is in action. Brain is in action means mind is in action. The connection between this mind and brain is something that is very difficult to even study. The reason is mind is so subtle. Mind cannot be perceived by any instrument, including atomic force microscope or any electronic microscope, or nothing can help us to see the mind. But it is a physical substance. It is a physical substance, physical matter, but it is very subtle. We can perceive it, we can feel its source. Those who perform meditation, those who get up early morning every day at 3 o'clock and take a cold water bath, and then introspect on self, they can certainly appreciate the subtle nature of this mind. But otherwise it's very tough. So that's why I'm saying Bhagavat Sankhya is not something that we can just pursue it without any prerequisite. Just like if you are studying artificial intelligence, then you have to have a prerequisite of linear algebra, certain amount of probably calculus and so forth, before you can understand what is AI, some prerequisite. We keep prerequisite for every subject. Similarly, prerequisite for Bhagavat Sankhya is it's not that we should be sinless. That's a very high level of prerequisite, but we should have this commitment to be free from sin. Sin means ignorance. That covers my intelligence, covers myself. In so many ways we can understand ignorance. Ignorance is that keeps me away from myself. So, okay, so, and again, because you see that we are going to talk about, again, Bhagavat Sankhya, and as I told you, there is a relationship, and this relationship, like mind, brain, then body, they're all connected. Something is seen, something is not seen. Probably you can see your brain is connected to different sensory organs. You have cochlear neuron here, you have heart neuron here, you have skin neuron everywhere. So the neurons are all spread out and they're collecting information from the body, and then it goes to the brain. You can see the network, neural network all through your body. Although there is a central brain that is sitting there, you can see that. But even the gross body is beyond this network of neurons. Okay, now because network of neurons doesn't give the purpose or the language to understand or to experience, right? All kind of bodily actions generate certain experience. Where is that experience? So the neural network that we talk in terms of physical body and the experience, co-experience, these two to be integrated. If we can integrate, understanding Bhagavat Sankhya would help the current civilization a great deal. And these are some of the small milestones we should keep when we study Bhagavat Sankhya, such that our understanding of the self becomes better, better, and better. So this is my request to all of you, is that we are studying this subject to understand. See, in this world, we are trying to understand so many things, and we think that is very important. But among all things that need to be understood is to understand myself, right? So this is something that we have to figure out. Okay. So now let us start today's discussion. This is 3.11.1. The material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom. It exists always as an invisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. Now, using scientific parlance, we started with a single cell, and that cell grew and was divided through cell division. There are multiplicity, and then there are variegatedness. That original cell, through cell division, it gave rise to my hairs, the dead cell, my bone, my nails. There are, every part of my body are consisting of different cell. Kidney is made up of different cell. Heart is made up of different cell. The brain is made up of different cells. The blood is made up of different cells. So this is variegatedness. So for what the biologists are seeing the body in terms of cells, right? So each one of us, we have, some estimate, some 120 trillion cells. This is what is the current scientific understanding. And the whole idea there is the body is made of cells. But here it says the body is made up of atoms, right? Now we make a distinction. For example, if I have this object, I say this object is made up of atoms using the scientific parlance, and the body is made up of cells. But according to Bhagavat Sankhya, it doesn't matter whether this or this. Everything is made up of atoms. So what is that atom? So that atom is certainly different. We will talk about that later, but this is very fundamentally different. So, and it is indivisible. But current day atom, the way it started, now it is divided. First atom, and then atom became electron, proton, neutron, then electron, quark, and it goes on, and then we have different models of these atoms. Atoms are no more atoms because they are divisible. So, but here, according to Bhagavat Sankhya, everything is made of atoms. So you can see here, next verse, it says, atoms are the ultimate state of the manifest universe. When they stay in their own forms without forming different bodies, they are called unlimited oneness. There are certainly different bodies in physical forms, but the atoms themselves form the complete manifestation. So this is something that we must give attention. Atoms make up the manifestation, but the appearance of body is different from the atoms. Okay, so this is something very, very confidential. Let's go next. So you see how atom in modern science was discovered. An atom is the smallest constituent unit of ordinary matter that has properties of chemical element. Every solid, liquid, gas, and plasma is composed of neutral or ionized atom. Atoms are very small. Typical sizes are around 100 picometer. Okay, so and this is so if we can say an illustration of helium atom depicting the nucleus. You can see there that bright spot there, and the electron cloud around it, right, black, and the upper one, which is a little lighter, in helium-4 is in reality spherical, symmetric, and closely resembles the electron cloud. Although for more complicated nuclei, this is not always the case. The black bar is 1 angstrom, 10 to the power minus 10 meter, or 100 picometer. So you see, we are trying to observe an atom visually. Visually, we are trying to observe an atom, right? We are trying to see the form of an atom. And these atoms, in the beginning, it was thought this is the basic building block of the universe, but modern science has given the idea of atom, and now they have gone to the idea of quantum field is the basic building block. So as such, within modern science, atom and the atom that we talk in Bhagavat Sankhya are completely two different things. And this is, I know I don't want to go in detail of this, how concept of atom as it started developed from John Dalton's theory. Atom is a hard, object, right? Thomson's experiment, where he found out that in atom there is something very hard, unpenetrable, and so this is Rutherford's experiment. And further, finally, you can see there Neil Bohr's idea of an atom, where a nucleus is surrounded or is orbited by an electron, and these orbits, they are associated with a fixed energy. So when an electron jumps from one orbit to another orbit, if it is towards the electron, so you can see that if it emits an electron, emits an energy in quanta, then it either goes up or down. That means every orbit is with a fixed energy packet. So you release one packet, so you switch from one orbit to another orbit. So this is the very famous model of Neil Bohr that we studied. But as I told you, all these studies finally has yielded that these are not the basic building block of the universe. Whereas Bhagavat Sankhya very clearly is saying that atom is indivisible. So obviously, we should not try to correlate our atom with the atom that we discuss in modern science. So, how do atoms combine, right? Atoms are there. Let us hypothesize atoms are there. They are there. They are all pervasive. And so how do atoms combine? Okay. So one is chemical reaction. In chemical reaction, we have understood that now how two hydrogen atom and one oxygen atom combine to form a body, and that body is water, right? According to our current science. So this chemical reaction, or atoms associate with each other, this is called principle of touch. I had already talked about it is sound, touch. So sound, by the effect of sound, there are atoms they combine. By the effect of touch, the atoms they combine. Different atoms they combine based on different tanmatras. That is touch, sound, touch, form, smell and taste. This is something that let me tell you a simple concept. You see, in neuroscience, we studied the neuroscience because I am an expert in, I have been working in neural networks, since 1991. It's almost like 30 years. And so you see that there is this concept of firing together, right? Firing together. Neurons, they fire together. So when they fire together, that means they wire together, right? They associate. When they fire together, they wire together. And that is how, within the brain, the memory is stored, right? That means similar emotions, similar tanmatras, similar things would always pinpoint a specific area of the brain, right? To be excited. So some people who have pure psychosis, they have a different way the neurons are wired, and those who are, like, imagine those who are seekers of truth, they are completely fearless. Their neurons will be completely differently wired. So this atoms, they combine, and there is a principle of combination, and we need to actually bring out these combination principle by research. So these are the things that we need to do actually. So sound is the governing principle for the combination of ethereal atoms. Form is the governing principle for the combination of fire atoms. Touch is the governing principle combination of air atoms. We have no idea that there are 5 different categories of gross atoms: earth, water, air, fire, ether. So these are all made up of different atoms, and these atoms, they combine based on the tanmatras, and these tanmatras, these are the things. The whole science needs to be studied in a completely different way, how atoms combine with each other, the similar kind of atoms. So again, these are things that we have not studied in science. Atom as it is and atom as the relation. By trying to understand atom as it is, the current structure of the atom has become divisible: electron, proton, neutron, quarks, and finally quantum field, right? So it is important to rediscover the atom as a relation. Information in relation to the source has a definite spatial atomic structure. The smallest of this atomic structure will be called a semantic atom. So this is what I was meaning when I said source matters, right? So a light coming from wood fire, or the photon coming from wood fire, photon coming from the gas fire, photon coming from the electric tube light or electric filament. These are all different, even although they're all the atoms representing fire. So these are things that we need to contemplate, formulate, experiment, and study. And so this requires very high level of sophisticated goodness atmosphere, very calculated experimental lab, and we need to do this to understand these subjects better. So as I told you, the atom that we talk within our Bhagavat Sankhya is a relation, right? Is a relation. Ultimately, is a semantic relation. So A red photon must be a relation between incident light on a red apple or a red banner. Experiments need to be done to show that red apple is different from a red banner. Experimentally, we need to establish that there are varieties in red photon. Then we have to revisit quantum electrodynamics and rederive equation to describe a red photon. So these are the things that we can always think about how to go about experiment. But as I told you, our concept of atom is a relation. And there is an absolute relation. An object is a relation with a reference to another. For example, voice with respect to a speaker. When I'm speaking, you know already by hearing that voice, I'm speaking. That means I am present in my voice. The speaker is present in the voice. Okay. Similarly, sound with respect to instrument. The beats with respect to mridanga, beats with respect to drum. Similarly, redness with respect to apple or dress. So these are some of the things that we need to study. We mostly deal with secondary relation, but Bhagavad Gita talks about ultimate relation, right? Secondary relation means voice with respect to speaker, sound with respect to instrument, redness with respect to apple. These are all secondary relations, right? So what is the ultimate relation? Sound with respect to the absolute truth, form with respect to the absolute truth, touch with respect to the absolute truth. Why they are there? Because this human life is very, very short. And given the very short duration of this life, we must hurry up to utilize this life to understand what is the relation, ultimate relation. I once met one musician, expert musician. He studied 12 years Hindustani classical music, and then he studied 20 years Carnatic music. Can you imagine? And somebody has studied now 32 years music. And then I explained to him and I asked him, you studied for 32 years music, why? What is finally you have understood about music? Just speak in very few sentences. And then he told me that when I sing, I want to understand through that singing what is my master's voice. That means when I sing, I must feel I am connected to the absolute. That means my music, when helps me to connect myself to the absolute truth, that is my perfection. So you can see here, Bhagavat Sankhya, for that matter, the Vedic science emphasizes we must study the relation. First, we become acquainted with secondary relation, but ultimately we must go to the ultimate relation or absolute relation. Now, the third verse, I'm only reading the translation, I'm not reading the Sanskrit, because these translations are being made by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So I felt that it is better that we simply focus on the English translation, because these translations are as it is. So we don't have to go to the Sanskrit at this moment. One can estimate time by measuring the movement of the atomic combination of the bodies. Time is the potency of the Almighty Personality of Godhead Hari, who controls all physical movement, although he is not visible in the physical world. Okay, so this is amazing, you see. So first two verses, it talked about the definition of atom, how atoms are invisible but they combine, and they combine in such a way they make a manifested world. But that manifested world, the atoms are not visible. They still remain invisible. So this is the beauty. So that is what I'm talking about. When I see my body is made up of blood, pus, blah, 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 blah. These are visible things. But this visible structure of my body is made up of something invisible, which is atom, right? So, and in contrary, what is happening in science, we are trying to study, we are studying, we look at the body and we want to break it. And finally, people have come that we have cell, right? So this is a cell they're making up. This is what is the current understanding of a biological body. But what is a biological atom? Our Bhagavat Sankhya doesn't make a distinction between a biological atom or a non-biological atom. Doesn't make any distinction. I have tried to understand it. It doesn't make. There is only one category atom. But it is very clear whether you are a biological body or a non-biological body, everything is body. Everything is somebody's body, right? So that's why we say soul of the universe. The universe is body of the universal soul. And that is called Virata Rupa, Virata Sarira, Virata body, the universal form. So everything is somebody's body. That is very, very important. And that is why the so-called distinction, organic and inorganic, you won't find within our Bhagavat Sankhya, because that is an illusion. Everything is ultimately organic. So this is very, very important. And all of them that are made up of earth, water, air, fire, ether. And as I told you, all of them that are made up of atom. And these atoms, they combine based on the tanmatras. And as I told you, these tanmatras can represent three gunas, right? So mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness. So tanmatras in mode of goodness would combine these atoms in a different way, whereas the tanmatras in mode of ignorance would combine these atoms in a different way. So that is why we say a food cooked by a pure devotee is different than food cooked by another person whose consciousness is very ghastly, right? So these are things that we need to know. So here we are now talking about atomic time. Next verse says, atomic time is measured according to its covering a particular atomic space. That time which covers the unmanifest aggregate of atoms is called the great time. Okay. So atomic time is measured according to its covering a particular atomic space. So atomic space, as I told you, what is space? Everything is made of space. So atomic space means atom is made of space, and that is called atomic space. Like you say office space, right? What is the meaning of office space? The space in which your office is situated, office space. So we don't have to speculate thinking what is atomic space. Atom itself is made up of space. depending on what kind of atom it is. Okay, so that time which covers the unmanifest aggregate of atoms is called the great time. That means this universe consists of a fixed number of atoms, and it says that great time covers the totality of that atoms. So, and Prabhupada, let us go to the purport. Time and space are two correlative terms. You see, correlative. You can't really make them mutually exclusive. Time is measured in terms of its covering a certain space of times, a space of atoms. Standard time is calculated in terms of movement of the sun. Time covered by the sun in passing over an atom is calculated as atomic time. The greatest time of all covers the entire existence of non-dual manifestation. All the planets rotate and cover space, and space is calculated in terms of atoms. Each planet has its particular orbit for rotating, in which it moves without deviation. Similarly, the sun has its orbit. The complete calculation of the time of creation, maintenance, and dissolution, measured in terms of circulation of the total planetary systems until the end of creation, is known as Supreme Kala. So, let me tell you this idea of space. I was in Jagannath Puri on 6th, 7th, 8th, and because of COVID, there is a very strict standard. Only if you have a negative COVID report, you can enter into the temple. So the temple inside is, hardly, normally when you enter into Jagannath temple, you see thousands of people. Now, the temple is very tranquil. You feel like sitting in one place and meditating, remembering the absolute truth. So, the experience of the space, same. So, when you enter into a temple, the experience of that space is different than you enter into a discotheque. In modern science, you cannot make a distinction between the space, the discotheque space, and a temple space. This is the big problem of the modern science. I've been telling again and again. The food cooked by great devotees offered to Krishna and the normal food. But you can see the effect. You go and eat outside, it would affect your consciousness, and you eat in the temple, like we ate Jagannath Prasadam. It has a great effect on the consciousness. So we know the experience, but then we have to recognize that the current science is very, very preliminary, because it cannot make a distinction, like between two categories of space. But anyhow, here, when Prabhupada is saying that all the planets rotate and cover space, and space is calculated in terms of atoms. So what are these atoms? Are these atoms are qualityless? No. Each atom has certain quality. And when they form a space, that space has certain quality. And then you can recognize, you can make a distinction between this is temple space, this is office space, this is residence space, this is discotheque space, this is auditorium space. Now you can make a distinction but as of now, we are not able to make any distinction because we have no idea of what is an atom. The next verse says the division of gross time is calculated as follows. 2 atoms make one double atom, 3 double atoms make one hexatom. This hexatom is visible in the sunshine, which enters through the holes of a window screen. One can clearly see that the hexatom goes up towards the sky. I don't know how many of you have seen this, because nowadays we live in electric houses. We have never actually even have, when we were small kids, we used to see this. Can you see that through the window, the sunshine is coming? And we used to see all those, later our teacher used to say they are all dust particles. But it is possible there are dust particles nowadays because everywhere there are dust. But Prabhupada is saying this hexatom is visible in the sunshine. What is it called? The Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto is saying this hexatom is visible in the sunshine which enters through the hole of a window screen. One can clearly see that hexatom goes up towards the sky. Right? So I have noticed this when I was a small kid, and we used to be fascinated by this, but never we were taught anything about that hexatom. The atom is described as an invisible particle, but when 6 such atoms combine together, they're called Trasarenu. This is visible in the sunshine pouring through the holes of a window screen. So Prabhupada is explaining that. But more important is this Trasarenu, or the hexatom, is not the idea of atom that we are looking within a modern science. What modern science is trying to do is that it is trying to explain everything in terms of a neutral substance. No. Neutral substance never exists within the manifest world. Neutral substance are there, but they don't manifest within this material world. This is something, because in this material world, everything is associated with certain quality, certain guna, and that we can experience. We can experience. But we deny our own experience. This is the biggest problem also. Okay, so now let us see how the time is calculated. The time duration needed for the integration of the 3 Trasarenus is called Truti. So 3 hexatoms, when they combine, the time duration for their combination is called Truti. 100 Trutis make one Veda. 3 Vedas make one Lava. The duration of time of 3 Lavas is equal to 1 Nimesa. The combination of 3 Nimesa makes 1 Kshana. 5 Kshanas combined together make 1 Kastha. 15 Kasthas make 1 Lagu. 15 Lagus make 1 Nadika, which is also called a Danda. 2 dandas make 1 muhurta, and 6 or 7 dandas make 1/4 of day or night, according to human calculation. Now, let's see here. 15 lagus make 1 nadika, which is also called danda. 2 dandas make 1 muhurta. 6 or 7 dandas make 1/4 of a day or night, according to human calculation. The measuring pot for one nadika or danda can be prepared with a 6 pala weight, 14-ounce pot of copper, in which a hole is bored with a gold probe weighing 4 masa and measuring 4 fingers long. When the pot is placed on water, the time before the water overflows the pot is called one danda. It is calculated that there are 4 praharas, which are also called yamas in the day, and 4 in the night of a human being. Similarly, 15 days and 15 nights are for fortnight. There are 2 fortnights, white and black, in a month. The aggregate of 2 fortnights is 1 month, and that period is 1 complete day and night for the Pitta planets. 2 of such months comprise 1 season, and 6 months comprise 1 complete movement of the sun from south to north. 2 solar movements make 1 day and night of the demigods, and that combination of day and night is 1 complete calendar year of human being. The human being has a duration of life of 100 years. Influential stars, planets, luminaries, atoms all over the universe are rotating in their respective orbits under the direction of Supreme, represented by eternal Kala. There are 5 different names for the orbits of sun, moon, stars, and luminaries in the firmament, and they each have their own samvatsara. So, when we are talking about experiential time, 100 years, trillion years, makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. Right? All that I can say that I have lived 50 years of my life. That makes sense. Why? Because this is my experiential time. Just like Lord Brahma would say, I have lived 50 years of my life. That makes sense to him because that is an experience. Right? So experiential time and the time that we talk about are 2 different things. That's why they said they each have their own samvatsara. Like the current universe, it has its own universal time, and the universe is 50-year-old. So universal structure, the universal Purusha or Virata Purusha has his own experiential time. Whereas science is only interested in time that is neutral. 1 year, 2 years. See, sometime you live 1 year, let us say, with your mother, loving mother, very affectionate mother. And you will find that 1 year has gone by just like that. And same 1 year, let us say you live with your wife and both of you are fighting all the time. And looks like that 1 year is like many, many yugas. So same 1 year, according to the neutral time that the modern science tries to understand, and then there is an experiential time. So these are 2 different things. So one is semantic time, the other is syntactic time. So the Bhagavat Sankhya always talks about the semantic time, semantic object. And these are the things that, first I'm going to read these things, and later I will make a summary and possibly give some direction how we can do some experiment. But any experiment we want to do within our science, Bhagavat Sankhya, the very purpose has to be different. And I gave some idea today, but let's go forward. The sun enlivens all living entities with its unlimited heat and light. It diminishes the duration of life of all living entities in order to release them from the illusion of material attachment. and he enlarges the path of elevation to the heavenly kingdom. He thus moves in the firmament with great velocity, and therefore everyone should offer him respect once every 5 years with all ingredients of worship. So you see here, let me read it again. O Vidura, the sun enlivens all living entities with his unlimited heat and light. He diminishes the duration of life of all living entities in order to release them from their illusion of material attachment. And he enlarges the path of elevation to the heavenly kingdom. He thus moves in the firmament with great velocity, and therefore everyone should offer him respect once in every 5 years with all ingredients of worship. So, how many of you us we feel indebted or grateful to sun? This is something that we need to understand. We take for granted sunlight, right? Nowadays there are winter and sometimes you don't see the sun. When you don't see the sun, you feel such a bad weather, that's all. But when sun comes, you never ask why sun is there, right? That is because most of the time we live in the quality of ignorance. We have to understand this. I will give a simple narration. Once we traveled in a bullock cart, almost I think 46 kilometers under the moonlight. We started around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Me and my family, my father, my mother, my brothers and sisters. We started in a bullock cart because the place where we were staying, that place got disconnected because one ghat had because this place was surrounded by hills, and there is a ghat region, and that ghat region had certain because of rain, the bridges and everything got collapsed, and then we got disconnected, and we have to go to our hometown. So this is what was suggested: you take a bullock cart and follow another path, and then reach. And amazingly, you see that 46 kilometers on a bullock cart and whole night. After becoming Krishna conscious, when I was staying in Juhu temple, there are certain Ekadasis. In Juhu temple, they have a tradition. Every Ekadasi, the congregation devotees would come and they will chant and do Sankirtan whole night. At some point of time in the night, when you do Kirtan, at some point of time you feel asleep, and you feel sleepy. I have a very, very clear memory of this Padayatra, because while bullock cart, my mother and others are sitting, me and my father's colleague, we were very blissfully walking under the moon sign. And we were walking on the field. And the experience was so wonderful that even, I think I was studying 7th, 8th standard, or 9th standard, 8th standard. And we never felt that we were walking for 46 kilometers. We walked, and morning came and we reached. We never felt even sleepy. So, these are all genuine experience. That means the qualities, they matter. So moonlight, its effect has such a mode of goodness effect on the environment that you walk more than 12 hours, 46 kilometers, and you still don't feel, because of mode of goodness. And so these are things that has been omitted within science. So we have to recognize, I'm not criticizing science. Science as it is now, it only does very little as far as our experiential world is concerned to describe it. Very little it does, very little. Although, you know, we have airplanes, we have rockets, we have automobiles, and so many things, but explaining our experiential world, it has very little contribution or no contribution. So that's what I want to explain to you. So what we studied until now, in syntactic time, one Truti is 8 upon 13,500 second. One Veda is 8 upon 135 second. One Lava is 8 upon 45 second. One Nimesa is 8 upon 15 second. But you see that yogis, they work, you know, you don't require a watch for a proper yogi. He doesn't require a watch. His clock cycle is so pakka that he can easily understand what is a Nimesa, what is a Lava, what is a Khyana, Kasta, Laghu, Danda, Prahara. So we don't have to go by this external watch and say, oh, there is a Prahara. But what that Prahara is meaning, you know, it has no meaning for me in the modern scientific term, 3 hours. It has not changed my life, 3 hours Prahara. Okay. So you see, one Prahara becomes 3 hours, one Danda 30 minutes, one Laghu 2 minutes, one Kasta 8 seconds. Unless they are internalized in terms of experiential time, these times is not really making any difference to my life, to my understanding of myself. One day 12 hours, one night 12 hours, one Pakhya 15 days. So these are all little. Now Vidura said, I now understand the life duration of residents of Pita planet and heavenly planet as well as that of human being. Now kindly inform me of the duration of life of those greatly learned living entities who are beyond the range of a kalpa. So one kalpa is 4.3 million years. That is, and one Divya kalpa, that means 4 cycles, if you, 4.3 million years. That is one kalpa. Oh, spiritually powerful one, you can understand the movement of eternal time, which is the controlling form of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Because you are a self-realized person, you can see everything by the power of mystic vision. Maitra said, O Vidura, the 4 millennium are called Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali Yugas. The aggregate number of years of all of these combined is equal to 12,000 years of demigod. So 12,000 years of demigod is equivalent to 4.3 million years, right? So that's how the equation is. The duration of Satya millennium equals 4,800 celestial years. The duration of Dwapara millennium equal 2,400 celestial years, and that of Kali is 1,200 celestial years. And I still remember there is a certain group, certain spiritual group. They had put this duration, Dwapara, Kali and Satya, this duration like this. And I was wondering how they have put a wrong thing. 1200, 2400, 40. What they missed is actually they are the celestial years. So sometimes people take it and they don't realize what are the units added to it. So this is very, very important. The transitional period before and after every millennium, which are a few hundred years as aforementioned, as known as yuga, sandhyas, or the conjunction of two millenniums, according to the expert astronomers, in those periods of all kinds of religious activities are performed. Obidura, in the Satya millennium, mankind properly and completely maintained the principles of religion, but in other millennium, religion gradually decreased by one part as religion was proportionately admitted. Outside of the three planetary systems, Swarga, Martya and Patala, the four yugas multiplied by 1000 comprise one day on the planet of Brahma. So that is 1000 Dibya Kalpa makes one day of Brahma, right? So that is 4.3 billion years. A similar period comprises a night, so 4.3 billion years. So total day of Brahma is 8.6 billion years. After the end of Brahma's night, the creation of three worlds begins again in the daytime of Brahma, and they continue to exist through the life duration of 14 consecutive Manus, or the fathers of mankind. Each and every Manu enjoys a life of little more than 71 sets of 4 millenniums. So there are 14 Manus and 1000 total Dibya Kalpas, 1000 divided by 14. So that will become 71 per Manu. After the dissolution of each and every Manu, the next Manu comes in order along with his descendants who rule over the different planets. But the 7 famous sages, demigods like Indra and their followers such as Gandharvas, all appear simultaneously with Manu. So Manu's regime, when Vaivasata Manu has taken over, the planetary system since the last 120 million years. So it is his rule now. He is the boss now. And along with him, his compatriots are like demigods Indra. So you can imagine in one day of Brahma, there will be 14 Indras and 7 sages. Every time you have different 7 sages, and there is a, like, you know, every prime minister, when a new prime minister comes, the prime minister brings in his cabinet ministers and so forth. So it's like that. In the creation during Brahma's day, the 3 planetary systems, Swarga, Martya and Patala, revolve, and the inhabitants, including the lower animals, human beings, demigods and pitas, appear and disappear in terms of their fruitive activities. So, my dear friends, you may be thinking that what this fellow is doing, you know, he's making us bored because these things are all there in Bhagavatam and we would have studied. He should have told us to study Vayam. No, this, first we have to go through this. More and more we read, better our consciousness becomes. Once consciousness becomes better, then we will have proper understanding by which we can approach this subject matter. So we are preparing the ground. So be patient. More patient you become, better this knowledge would appeal to us. Okay. So in the creation during Brahma's day, the 3 planetary systems, Swarga, Martya and Patala, revolve, and the inhabitants, including the lower animals, human beings, demigods, pitas, appear and disappear in terms of their fruitive activities. In each and every change of Manu, the Supreme Personality Godhead appears by manifesting his internal potential in different incarnations as Manu and others. Thus, he remains the universe, he maintains the universe by discovered power. So ultimately, this system that is being placed, whether it is time cycle, yuga cycle, with the yuga cycle, the varieties of administrators, they're all done by the expert arrangement of the absolute truth. So this point we have to recognize. At the end of the day, under this insignificant portion of the mode of darkness, the powerful manifestation of the universe merges in the darkness of night. By the influence of eternal time, the innumerable living entities remain merged in that dissolution, and everything is silent. So at the end of the day, under the insignificant portion of mode of darkness, the powerful manifestation of the universe emerges in the darkness of the night. By the influence of eternal time, the innumerable living entities remain merged in that dissolution, and everything is silent. So you see here, each day, each day, I think is refers to Brahma. Yes, the creation during Brahma's days. Looks like it is Brahma's day. When the night, yes, correct. When the night of Brahma ensues, all the three worlds are out of sight. The sun and moon are without glare, just as in due course of an ordinary night. How that happens, I don't know. That means during the day, night of Brahma, sun and moon, they are without the glare. So this is, they don't have their own light. The devastation takes place due to the fire emanating from the mouth of Sankarsana, and thus great sages like Bhrigu and other inhabitants of Maharloka transports themselves to Janaloka, being distressed by the warmth of the blazing fire which rages through the three worlds below. So that means the above Swarga planet, the Janaloka, Tapaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. So these lokas are also, at least it says that Maharloka is affected by that great fire. At the beginning of the devastation, all the seas overflow, and hurricane wind blows very violently. The waves of the seas become ferocious. In no time, at all three worlds are full of water. The Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, lies down in the water on the seat of Ananta with his eyes closed, and the inhabitants of Janaloka planet offer their glorious prayers unto the Lord with folded hands. The process of exertion of the duration of life exists for every one of living beings, including Lord Brahma. One's life endures for only 100 years in terms of times in different planets. That is, that everybody has an experiential time of 100 years, from insect to Brahma. There is no distinction. On the quality of that experience would be different. Quality of that experiential time for an ant, quality of experiential time of a human, quality of experiential time of Brahma would be different. Otherwise, the experiential time is same. The experience is same. Okay. The 100 years of Brahma Brahma's time Okay, the 100 years of Brahma's time are divided into two parts. The first half and second half. The first half of the duration of Brahma's life is already over, and second half is now correct. That's what I started saying, that Brahma has already lived 50 years of his life. And the universe is also, the duration of universe and duration of Brahma is same. So universe also has lived for 50 years. In the beginning of first half of Brahma's life, there was a millennium called Brahma Kalpa, wherein Lord Brahma appeared. The birth of Vedas was simultaneous with Brahma's birth. The millennium which followed the first Brahma millennium is known as Padma Kalpa, because in that millennium the universal lotus flower grew out of navel reservoir of water of the personality of Godhead Hari. And then, O descendant of Bharata, the first millennium in the second half of life of Brahma is also known as Varaha millennium, because the personality of Godhead appeared in that millennium as the hog incarnation. So you see here, the narration is not like historical narration that is happening. It is a narration that is, an experiential narration. That means a sage who has lived through these kalpas is able to speak it. So obviously you see, Maitreya has heard from Krishna. So when you hear from Krishna or Brahma, Brahma, he has lived 50 years of his life, which is 150 trillion years. So when he speaks something and you hear, that is different than I speak and you hear. Because Brahma is speaking, and he is speaking in terms of his own experiential time. This will not be according to the syntactic time that we are normally habituated with. This experiential time is very important, because that is the part of truth. Because ultimately we want to understand the truth. So the experiential time and syntactic time, there is a distinction. And we need to understand this. The duration of two parts of Brahma's life, as I mentioned, is calculated to be equal to 1 nimesha for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means the entire Brahma's life, which is 311 trillion years, 40 billion years, is like a less than second for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because as he exhales, these universes, they come into being, they expand, they remain there for some time, and again they are withdrawn. Okay, so that is only for exile. And what is an exile of Supreme Personality Godhead Narayana? This is just less than a second, who is unchanging and unlimited and is the cause of all causes of the universe. Eternal time is certainly the controller of different dimensions, from that of the atom up to the super divisions of durations of Brahma's life, but nevertheless, it is controlled by Supreme. So that is why it is said, a yogi can very clearly maintain the atom that comprises his body. He has so perfect control of his body. And that is why a yogi can live as many years. This is something that I'm going to talk a little later, how that happens. But so time can control only those who are body conscious, even up to Satyaloka, or the other higher planets of the universe. Okay, so how long I should go? I think, okay, I have only So this is okay. This phenomenal material world is expanded to a diameter of 4 billion miles as a combination of 8 material elements transformed into 16 further categories within or without as follows. The layer or elements covering the universe are each 10 times thicker than the one before. All the universes clustered together appear like atoms in huge combination. The Supreme Personality Godhead, Sri Krishna, is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal, without a doubt. It is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestation. So you see here, that is the central part is the universe. The universe has a covering of layer Earth that is 40 billion miles thickness. The thickness of this covering is 40 billion. And then that is covered by water whose thickness is 400 billion miles. And you see, these are all not the, don't project your understanding of earth, water, fire, air, ether into these compositions. These are all semantic elements that we'll be talking more. It will take some time for us to get actuated or acquainted with vocabulary. So water is 400 billion miles. Fire is 4,000 billion miles, next covering. And then air is 40,000 billion miles. Just imagine. Just see the covering of this universe. You know, can you imagine? Suppose you are placed inside a dark chamber. How will you feel? And that is how we are staying inside this universe. And we never feel, oh, we are imprisoned. We never feel. And ether is 400,000 billion miles of thickness. I'm not talking radius. These are all thickness. And false ego is 4,000 trillion miles. And Mahatattva is 40,000 trillion miles. So can you imagine? So inside this covering of this universe, the universe is only 4 billion miles in thickness. Okay, and the thickness of this universe is very, very, very huge. And you know what was a surprising thing? Surprising thing is that the tip of the toenail of Vamana, when penetrated these 7 layers, the water from Birija trickled inside. And that is the universal beauty of the absolute truth. And so we started with the idea of atom, and the atomic space, the way is covered by sun rays, is called time. And then we saw that these atoms, they combine, and based on that, when the atoms, they combine, based on that, the process of combination, how much time it takes, generate notion of experiential time in terms of Trisha, Truti, and we saw all those terms until we entered into Brahma's experiential time of 311 trillion 40 billion years, or 1,000 day of 1,000 Dibya Kalpa makes up 1 day of Brahma. So how everybody's experiential time is different than others' experiential time. That means you can imagine my body has 120. This is a speculation. Don't take it for truth. I'm just giving an idea that my body consists of 120 trillion cells, and that is my 100 years, right? And these 120 trillion cells, you multiply that by 4.3 million into 1000 into 2, that is the number of cells in Brahma's body. And this is just an exaggeration because it has to be counted in because I don't know the number of atoms that my body consists of. Okay, because my body consists of not this 120 trillion cells. That's a wrong thing. My body consists of some amount of atoms in terms of ether, some types of atoms, some number of atoms in terms of air, and then fire, and then water, and then earth. So these are the atoms that this body is made up of. And these number of atoms that the body has, that and of course these atoms in different quality would ensure different experiences that I would go through. And then that atom, that number of atoms that I have, you multiply that number of atoms to 1000 into 4.3 million into 2 will make the number of atoms that Brahma's body is made up of. So this is just an extrapolation of what is Brahma's body, right? And similarly, we can also talk about the structure of different planetary system. If we get all this data properly, we can also understand that. But as of now, I think that I should stop here. What I'm going to do now is next time, next class, I'm not going to present now because I have given you what is there in the literature. Now I will use my own scientific temper, my understanding, and I would create a roadmap about the take-home exercises that we can carry from these descriptions, and how we can give a safe in terms of further experimentation, and that would help us to understand ourselves better. So this will be done next class, and then the next to next class would be, instead of going directly to the fundamental principles of material nature, the 25th chapter onwards, what I'm going to do, I'm going to teach you what is philosophy, language of thought. That would, because you see, the philosophy is very important, philosophical, because what philosophy does is that it makes us more subtle in terms of our thinking. You see that our lifestyle is such, we are always becoming grosser and grosser and grosser, and hence we allow ignorance to sink in. To purge out the ignorance, the approach has to be I have to be as subtle as possible, as subtle as possible. And more subtle you become, more lighter you become. And you, whether you are 100-year-old or 1 year old, doesn't make any distinction. You remain always a very subtle personality. And that is at least the immediate goal of a human life. And of course, the ultimate goal is much higher, that is there in Bhagavatam. Thank you so much. Any question you want to ask?
Yeah, sir, thank you very much for your wonderful explanation. So there are some questions you can take up. So first question is, how can we scientifically or empirically prove the separate existence of mind from the brain? You explained that mind controls the brain in the beginning of the class. So he's asking, how can you differentiate mind from brain?
You can't do that using empirical science. Using empirical science, you can't make a distinction between mind and you can only experience, you can have the experience of the mind by practicing spiritual process. The more important than to understand mind is to understand what is a semantic atom. When you have not understood the basic building block of this universe, gross universe I'm talking about. So why you want to understand the mind? Just like 2 + 2 = 4, if you don't know, what is the point of understanding matrix A, tensor, product, matrix B? Big thing. So we are told by the yogis, by the seers of truth, like here Maitreya. Maitreya is not an ordinary personality. Just like if you study physics, you give great reverence to Newton, Einstein. Similarly, when we study Bhagavatam, we have great reverence from Maitreya, Narada, Vyasa. So when Maitreya speaks, we hear and we don't understand, obviously. And but we should accept there is something like mind. And mind, it is amazing, isn't it? Suddenly, certain emotion would come to you, right? You are sitting, certain emotion, let's say, the thought of your mother comes to you. And then the tears rolls down. Your mother is not there with you. You may be distant apart, but then there are certain actuation in the brain that causes tears to come through your eyes. So your relation with your mother, where it is? So when you start asking such questions, Then only you will be able to penetrate your personality. How I can ask more and more such questions? More questions I ask, more deeper becomes my meditation, my thought process. And that very thought process takes me subtler and subtler and subtler. Because we don't ask question, we become grosser, grosser, grosser. Try to understand. Grosser, grosser, grosser means entering into ignorance. Subtler, subtler, subtler means you are becoming knowledgeable. That is why yogis, they lived under trees. They didn't dream to make a bungalow. Right? Grosser you become, you would like to have a big bungalow, big empire. Whereas when you become subtle, subtle, knowledge means becoming subtler. This is called Brahminical. Right? So, yes, your question is very good. How can I distinguish mind from the brain? If you ask me how science studies mind, I know you'll be laughing how it studies mind. But I would not study mind and brain the way you are thinking, because I will study mind and brain in terms of first understanding the basic building block of the gross experience in terms of earth, water, air, fire, ether. So I would first figure out what is an earth atom, what is an ether atom, or in basic term I can say what is a sound atom, what is a form atom, what is a touch atom. I would like to understand. Can I go? This is what you will see in my next class. I'll bring certain ideas, how we can take those ideas to different experimentation, how we can conceive these ideas of atoms, and how we can combine these atoms under the influence of three gunas, particularly in the presence of tanmatras. So these are the things that we have to study first before we can even directly enter into mind, because then we will surely make mistake, because first I must learn 2 + 2 = 4. That is our acharyas also tell us that in Srimad Bhagavatam, I must internalize first canto 1, then canto 2, then canto 3, and so forth, until I reach canto 10. So there is a systematic process is there. We have to be present. So even if I give an answer now, it will not penetrate.
Can we take up another question? So one person is asking, Abhay Kumar Naik. So he's asking, you said atoms are indivisible as per Vedic system, Bhagavat Sankhya, but what is more fundamental? The three modes of nature, Satagun, Rajagun, Tamagun, or atoms, or the Pancha Mahabhutas, earth, air, fire, air, ether, the one is to explain. So what is more fundamental?
This explanation is already given in 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Same question was asked by Vidura. And Krishna said, one can try to understand the basic building block of this universe using 27 element, 28 element, 3 element, even 1 element. So it all depends who is the person, what is the kind of one inquiry he is looking at, and how many elements it is necessary for his inquiry. So So there is nothing rigid answer to it. We can explain this, the basic building block in terms of 8 elements, 24 elements, 3 elements, what you said, that is mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So it's based on what, like Ayurveda. Ayurveda, understands this body in terms of 3 elements, kapha, vata, pitta. So that's it. You are a kapha personality, you are a vata personality, you are a pitta personality. Based on that, they have a set of medicine that you have to take. So it all depends where you are and what is your inquiry. So what is your question based on that?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So there is another question by Chiranjit Roy. He's asking, so you told information needs a resting place, so space comes out. So at the same time, you also told that fire, the space corresponding to that, rest in form, information. Can you explain what does it mean? And also you told that material matter is living, but in quiz, I also found matter isn't conscious. So he's how to understand this?
So, I forgot the first part. The second part I remember. Let me first answer the second part.
Okay.
Okay, I remember now your first part. First part is that you are saying that information requires space, and that's why the space is formed.
Yes. So he's saying that all the different kinds of, he's saying at the same time also told that fire, the space corresponding to that, rests in form or information. So can you explain further? So what does it mean?
Fire?
He's saying that fire, the space corresponding to fire, rests in form or information. So
no. Form rests in fire, not fire rests in form. This is not correct. Yeah. Oh. you see that the fire comes from the form, right? So fire is the carrier of the information form, and you are saying the form is also giving rise to the fire, the space. So you want certain explanation. Okay. So let me explain. I understood your question now. So it is like this. There is one category of energy that represents form. That form, or the energy equivalent of form, is semantic. Whereas the fire which it produces to carry it, you can deal that both semantically as well as syntactically. So in that sense, the energy equivalent of form is foundationally more powerful and can create energy. What kind of energy? The energy that is called fire. And this very idea was used in Akshaya Patra. In Akshaya Patra, you can go on feeding as many people, until Draupadi eats, right? So this is not some kind of mythology, this is a science. Because here, the information is more fundamental than our so-called idea of energy that we understand within modern science. Everything is energy, but one category of energy is fundamentally more powerful than another category of energy. So these are some things that requires a lot of deliberation, and to explain these things to a boy like Chiranjit, who is just in first year, I would be, it take lot of things I have to explain to you before you can understand it. So, what is space? How space reemerges? How space can shrink? What happens when space shrinks? So these are all very beautiful questions. And don't always be greedy to know the answer. Seek the answer on your own. Once you get an answer, then try to verify that answer, either from an authority or through experimentation. That is the method. Most of the time we try to be spoon-fed. This really doesn't help. I would like all of you, ask question, but certain question, you also start searching the answer. And once you get an answer, get it verified by two means. One is from the authority, the other is by sheer experimentation. Okay?
Already 1 o'clock, past 5 minutes past 1 o'clock. So just last question, maybe sir can answer quickly. So here Edwin is asking, he's saying, I'm confused about how to calculate a day in the life of Brahma, computing with a direct conversation. 1 day duration without the night is 4.32 billions of years. Science computes the age of the universe to be 13.8 billions of years, which is more than 4.32 billions of years. So what is the correct way to calculate the day of Brahma? So could you enlighten?
According to Veda, the universe, the age of universe is 150 trillion years. Not whatever you said, some 8 billion years or 13 billion years you said. That is not correct. How they have derived this age of Earth, age of this universe as 13 billion years, I don't know. So don't ask me that question, but that's a wrong. According to, because I understand the Bhagavata to be true, so I know that this universe is 150 trillion years for sure. There is no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. So once you understand that this universe is 150 trillion years, then you should not have any problem, because Brahma's age is 50 billion years. 50 years. And that way, if you calculate, you will figure out this is really the right calculation. So 1000 Divya Kalpa is 1 day of Brahma, that is 4.3 billion years. And 1 night of Brahma is another 4.3, that makes 8.6 billion years. And like that, Brahma has 360 days per year. So you can multiply 360, that becomes 1 year. And Brahma has 50 years, is little more than 50. So you will approximately reach 150 trillion years. So that is how you will get our calculation. And universe also has a similar age, that of Brahma. You may say, okay, universe will be little more than Brahma. It's fine, because in trillion, in the scale of trillion, doesn't matter. You add a little bit here or there, doesn't matter. So that is how it is. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining this class.
Thank you very much, sir, for your time and explaining things so nicely. So we'll be looking forward to the next class.
So next class, I am going to use my board and pen. I'm not going to take help, because whatever is there already in Bhagavatam, I covered today. So next time, I will just talk about what is experiential time and how we can understand an atom and how atoms combine, how time emerges based on the atomic combination, and what are the repercussions of that very event. We will discuss next class. Thank you.
And also, on a final note, we are also thinking of making some groups where different people from different backgrounds, they can come together and discuss different research problems. So maybe Professor Behra can schedule a meeting with him, and we'll share the link, Google Form link, to all the participants and whoever attended Jigyasa them also, so they can fill out and so express their research interest, so that we can plan out some activity on the banner of ISS. So pursuing something along the direction that sir has kindly shared with us. So maybe in future we can plan out a session with Professor Behra to talk about some kind of projects, research problems that different people may be interested to take part in. Okay, thank you very much, sir, for your time. So we end the session here.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.